Well, welcome everybody. We're so glad that you could join us today. We're going to have an interfaith discussion on the path forward and what it means to live vitally in a post-pandemic world. So you have in your presence four religious people coming from different faiths. And we're certainly open in this to people who come from no faith whatsoever. This includes anybody that's interested. But one thing I can guarantee you is that the four of us have experienced four emotions that I'm sure you've experienced as well. One is uncertainty on what the future holds. One is anxiety about what the future will be. One is appreciation for friends and family and people that work to keep society going, particularly people that are on the front line. And one is hope that things can be good, that things can be alive in the future in the best way possible. So uncertainty, anxiety, appreciation, and hope. And this will be a fairly personal conversation because we've asked ourselves to dig in a little bit and talk about who we are and what we've experienced and what we hope for. So my name is Jay McDaniel, and I'm a retired professor of world religions at a liberal arts college in the state of Arkansas in the United States. I've written a couple of books on ecology and religion and interfaith dialogue and religion. And I have a website called Open Horizons that I try to publish materials from a lot of different people. And I'm very active in my local area in interfaith work, which takes me to a second of our panelists. You'll see Sophia Saeed, with whom I work often. She happens to be in New Jersey right now, but she works in Arkansas. She's known to many, many in Arkansas as a premier interfaith leader. Sophia is unique among other reasons because she started a mosque, or she got the effort going to start a mosque in Little Rock, and she succeeded. It's a progressive mosque. It has many women that are leading the mosque. They do a lot of interfaith work, and of course they do a lot of work for Muslims in this area. Sophia has a bachelor's degree in economics from the University of Utah, and also a master's degree from the Clinton School for Public Service here in Little Rock. She is the director of an organization called the Interfaith Center of Arkansas. And this is a center that does a whole lot of good work in Arkansas for all ages. So among the many things she's done is to start a summer interfaith camp for school-age children. That's one of just a few things. Also on your screen, you'll see Rabbi Bradley Artson. Now, Rabbi Artson is someone that I've known for a long time and admire tremendously. He has written many, many books. He talks all over the place. He has a Facebook page with some 70,000 followers. Among the incredible things that he does is he offers these moments of Torah, 5-minute lectures on the Hebrew Bible. And he lifts up insights that are available to everyone. Rabbi Artson is convinced that Judaism is a wisdom tradition. Yes, it's an ethnicity. Yes, it has people that identify as Jews and loves that. But it also has wisdom for the whole world. I turn to his moments of Torah all the time for inspiration. He did one on the 23rd Psalm the other day, which is loved by Christians and Jews as well. And it just helped so much. Among his books is one called The God of Becoming and Relationship, the Dynamic Nature of Process Theology. He is a leading process theologian in the world today, and we're so glad to have him. You'll also see Elaine Padilla. Elaine teaches at Laverne University in Laverne, California. She teaches Latin American studies and Latinx studies and is a philosopher of religion and theologian in her own right. I want to give you the title of one of her books, Divine Enjoyment, A Theology of Passion and Exuberance. I've read the book and I love the book, and I love the idea of passion and exuberance in God. I love that. So when we were thinking of a title for this program, I thought about, well, about hope in a pandemic age, but hope seemed too light. It didn't have vigor. It didn't have vitality. And it was really Elaine's influence that said, no, let's go for a stronger word. Let's talk about the forms of vitality, the forms of exuberance that, who knows, we may have even felt during this time of pandemic, but we certainly hope for after the pandemic. Now, just so you don't think she's too optimistic about things, she's also working on a book called The Darkness of Being. And I don't know what it's about, it's in process, but I'm sure it has to do with the darkness of the soul and that womb-like fertility that dwells within each of us. We're looking forward to that, Elaine. She's also specializes in world Christianities, the many kinds of Christianity that are found throughout the world today. Christianity is no longer a Western religion. It's a post-Western religion. And everybody knows that, but Elaine writes books on that. She lives in California, likes to hike and ride bikes. We're so glad to have you. Now, Sophia is going to take it from here and lead us with questions that we'll consider. You can offer comments in the chat section as we do this, and we want to hear from you, and also we'll respond as we can. Sophia, please take over.
Thank you, Jay. Thank you so much for these wonderful introductions to all of us. I will request you all before we start to keep your microphones unmuted. It just makes it easier for everybody to understand the one who's speaking. And let's just start with the questions without any further delay. And I want to start with asking you about yourself, getting to know you a little bit better. And my first question is that, tell us about who you are, inwardly and outwardly. And where do you find your community? If that has changed during the crisis in any way and form or function. How do you interact with your own self, with your community, and with the divine during this crisis that's going on? Do you see any changes? And I think I would like to start with myself first, only because I don't want to speak after all of you, great minds and thinkers. It'll be very difficult for me. So I think I'm going to start this question by answering first. And Jay already mentioned two things that I do and I'm very passionate about, and the two organizations that I lead, which speaks to who I am. I am a Muslim woman who finds immense value in serving people of my own faith and serving people of others' faith and no faith at the same time. I think it's my spiritual calling to do this spiritual work. I like to seek a closer personal connection with God. I seek that in my silence, in my prayers, in nature and music and poetry, in my human interactions, and most of all, in service. I am very passionate about something that I do most of the time, which is creating interfaith spaces where people of different religious backgrounds and faith traditions can come together and explore our common humanity together by engaging in healthy, positive dialogue, which will foster spiritual growth for all these people. Jim mentioned the mosque that I serve, Medina Institute. That's my community. That's one of my communities. It's young, it's small, but very loving and strongly knitted and vibrant. That's where I find my solace. That's my sanctuary. And of course, it has been disrupted in so many different ways that I think you all can imagine, because the same thing has happened to churches and synagogues and temples. Today is the 21st day of Ramadan, which is the holiest month for Muslims. And we just started the last 10 days of the worship. And these days hold immense value in terms of prayer and reflection and meditation for Muslims. In fact, there is a special worship service in this 10 days in which people who choose to, they enter into a period of solitary and silence retreat for 10 days. And mosques make special arrangements for that silent retreat. It's called itikaf, and I'm not able to offer that to my community in the mosque that I helped build. and I'm not able to offer so many other worship services that I do for my community. So that's a big change in the way I do things. But as far as my role is concerned, my role within my community, within my networks, that has not changed. I'm still serving them, but just in different ways. I'm still leading them and inspiring them and motivating them, but in ways that I was not used to. And I'm actually trying to find creative and innovative ways to keep us all connected and to serve the need that the community has. I'm also a part of another community. That's my interfaith community. My friends from Christian, Jewish, Buddhist, and many other faith backgrounds that I work with to make Central Arkansas a more inclusive and harmonious place to live together. This community is also very, very important for me. Actually, it has been a big part of my personal and spiritual growth. And it has been a source of immense inspiration for me. And since I'm not a part of that physical community, I'm not a part of the community physically, I'm realizing the value which I knew but never felt it in the ways that I'm feeling now. So in short, this is who I am. That's where I find my community. That's where my role is. And I would like to extend the same question to all three of you. And I would like to know, who are you in relations to your own self, in relations to your community, and in relations to God? And has that been shifting lately? So I would like you all to ponder upon it. And Brad, can I start with you, please?
Sure. Thank you so much, Sophia, and thank you for that beautiful answer. And to each of you, I'm very happy that we could be together for this. Um, I want to be concise because I really want to hear from the others as well. I will say that for me, being a Jew is a mode of being human. And so humanity sparkles in its diversity and its particularity, but that particularity is the particularity of something we share in common. So for me, these days have reminded me of the value both of our shared humanity and of the ways that Judaism makes me more resilient and more patient and more hopeful and even more joyous. You know, I'm not always someone who's able to pray the statutory prayers 3 times a day. I am a caretaker at home in addition to my work, but I will tell you that one of the benefits of being sheltered at home is my prayer life has never been richer. And I find even when praying alone, that holding the words that my people and my ancestors have used for such a long time links me and makes me not feel alone. It also, of course, connects me to the Holy One. And knowing that God is very much present around the world and for each of us also fills me with a sense of connection to my fellow human beings. So that's certainly one area that has given my interiority a resource to mobilize as I move forward. I don't know about you, but I also find myself busier than I've ever been. I run a rabbinical school in Los Angeles, the Ziegler School of Rabbinic Studies. I'm the dean of a rabbinical school in Germany that trains Masorti conservative rabbis for Europe. And that's the Zacharias Frankel College in Potsdam, which is the capital of Brandenburg. And I'll just share with you, Sophia, that when I was in Potsdam last, they launched an egalitarian mosque in Berlin, which has a woman imam leading it. And I had the privilege of being there for the opening prayer service. And there was a group of rabbis who came with me, and we were invited to sing a Arabic Hebrew song to be able to show how much we were thrilled. And so it was a beautiful, beautiful moment. I guess the last thing I would say is that religion for me is a place that holds both the permissibility of joy and hope and its ultimate victory, but it also gives us permission to rage and grieve. There has to be a sense of loss for what's been taken from us. These months, our time together, our ability to hug the people we love who we can't see. And so for me, religion gives us both. You know, Jay referred to the book of Psalms. The book of Psalms famously rages. You know, I think one of the things that makes it such a powerful book of poetry is that we have permission to say, God, where are you? And when are you going to rise up? Which is quite a strong criticism. And it's put in the Bible because there has to be a place for us to feel everything we feel. And in that sense, religion offers for me a holding space to be able to feel the anger but not be defined by it, to feel the sorrow but not be trapped by it, and ultimately to preserve that hope has the final say, and that my home base is in hope, and that religion, because it is distinctive for each of our traditions, and then within those traditions, the ways we live it, it also connects us to each other and to the planet so profoundly through the one God who we each try to serve imperfectly.
Thank you, Brad, for this beautiful narration of your own personal spiritual growth. And I love it when you said religion connects us with the ones around us and with the universe. And with that, I would like Elaine for you to go next and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Thank you so much for having me. I think this is one of the first events that I've done of this nature, and I'm certainly grateful that you have thought of me as someone who could join all of you. I draw from, in my tradition, the Christian tradition, I draw from the mystics quite a bit, and to me, contemplation, listening, are means to draw inward, to go into the rich wells of the self, where I can find the divine, and I can find also my deepest interconnectedness with all living things. And so this time of solitude for me has grown, has become richer, has become more fruitful in many ways. It has also become, how can you say, trying when we do these kind of exercises, contemplative exercises, and are seeking to be in greater union with God, in greater union with ourselves and the universe. We encounter a lot of things that might not be truly enjoyable. We want to dig deep and encounter both the beautiful and the ugly combined, and have a wonderful moment of acceptance and lovingness and compassion that grows also by that very act of really seeing ourselves and encountering those depths. It's almost like a churning, like a mixing of things, and digging out. And so those excavation moments can be scary and can be also very fruitful. So this time for me has been a time for having more of it, and developing these practices in greater ways. I would say that this practice began with Lenten for me. It's something similar to Ramadan, and we do a lot of time for fasting, and also abstaining from certain types of activities, certain types of things. And Lenten really prepared me. I took this, the last 2 or 3 years, I've been taking Lenten really seriously. And and somehow it extended. It has extended through this time, but it has really deepened my faith and deepened myself. I would say that I am generally quite a monkish person, and one beautiful thing that has happened as a result of having greater or long or more extended amounts of time in solitude has been that I am seeing my home as a sanctuary, and being able to like just recently, because one of my communities is my students and my colleagues and my the university where I work. I invited Sister Gail Borcello, who is one of the Green Sisters from the Green Mountain Monastery in Vermont. And she was leading, invited her to my class, and she was leading us into meditation with a plant. And so I began to look at my plants in my apartment, and I began to realize that they are also with me going through this time of solitude, and they have accompanied me all this time. And so somehow this sanctuary became even a more universal sanctuary. It just felt more cosmic and natural. So the whole world was coming into my sanctuary, birds singing, flowers, smells, and I realized that I was truly planted in the universe and communing with the universe. And so a lot of beautiful things are happening. Of course, there are losses, moments of anxiety and sadness, of deep sorrow, crying, tears, and at the same time having a great comfort coming near me, the divine comfort, the human comfort, my friends as I walk with them, having deep conversations with them. Of course, socially distancing myself, but also a lot of wonderful depth that I'm finding in this time.
Jay, would you please tell us about yourself and your community? You're on mute. Would you please unmute yourself?
Yes, I think everything that each of you said, I can resonate with. And I'll simply tell you what a morning is like for me. When I get up I get up at 4:30 in the morning here where I live. And one of the first things that I do is read the Bible. And I follow a lectionary. And so I read from Hebrew Bible, and I read from the New Testament. And my Bible readings always include the Psalms. And so I read a psalm or two every day. Rabbi Arts and I don't always like the Psalms that I read. And my guess is you don't either. But I feel like, you see, my feeling about the Psalms is, even if I don't feel that way, somebody does. And so one reason that I think I read the Psalms is I want to know how other people feel. I want to be connected with them too. It's not just about me. And then after I read the Psalms, I go outside on my front porch, right 30 feet away. And it's been springtime, and you hear the birds, and they're just having a ball. And one thing that strikes me is they're having such a good time establishing territory and mating and singing their songs, and they get along without me, without us. And so life has a vibrancy that so transcends the human. And it's full of vitality and aliveness. And so I read an article in the New York Times by a woman who used the phrase, the perfect indifference of the natural world. Her phrase was the perfect indifference of the natural world. And I liked that phrase. And it gave me a sense of God's transcendence, actually. I think Job had a sense of this as well. It gave me a sense there's really something more. And I think I'm glad to have awakened to that. One more bit of community. I live with one wife and two dogs. And someone once joked, 35 years of marriage never prepared us for this, all this time together. So I've enjoyed getting to know my wife, unavoidably. And I think we've gotten to know each other a lot better. I also sing music for folks in assisted living centers twice a week, sing along music. I really miss them. I really feel sorry for them. They don't have a home to return to. They don't have dogs and a partner. And I think about them a whole lot and miss them. And I hope that the deep God is present to them in their way. And I plan to be a vessel for that in any way I can. So I call them up on my cell phone and I sing to them. That's our way of being connected. That's me. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing that, Jay, and thank you all to share how things are changing for us. And you all touched upon some things that you're enjoying more and perspectives that you're gaining and some things which you're missing. We are indeed living in a historic time. So I would like to know, where is faith in all of this for you? What role does faith play, and where is your own coping mechanism and your courage and your the way you deal with this crisis coming from? I have been noticing for the last almost a month. I mean, we went through Easter, we went through Passover, and now it's Ramadan. So personally, for me, there is this revitalizing energy in praying together in large groups. I enjoy it. It touches me so much. And that energy has been missing from my life for the last 2 months now, especially in this most spiritual season of my life. So that has been something that I'm missing a lot. But I think the sounds of the birds and the nature is compensating a little bit for that. Jay mentioned a summer camp that I do every year. I organize it with my Christian, Jewish, and Buddhist friends. And it's a camp where young children from elementary schools, they come together and for a week of just making friendships, learning about each other's faiths and becoming friends with each other. We call it Friendship Camp. So a month ago, we decided to postpone the camp till the end of summer. But just a couple of weeks ago, we decided we are not going to have camp this year. And this camp is an example of communities that we do not find organically, but we create them around ourselves because something deep inside us craves for those connections. They give us joy, they give us nourishment. It has been really, really important for me for the last 5 years. It gives me something that sustains me for the next few months, helps me keep moving and serving, to see the joy on those young Jewish, Muslim, Christian children who are learning about each other. And I'm missing that a lot. And I don't know what else can compensate for that. But then I go back to my holy book, Quran, which says, فَإِنَّ مَعَ الْأُسْرِ يُسْرًا إِنَّ مَعَ الْيُسْرِ يُسْرًا. That behold, there is ease with hardship. Indeed, every hardship comes with ease. So this verse has been such a source of solace for me, because God is telling me there is not ease after hardship. Actually, there is ease with the hardship. And I've been reflecting a lot on this verse, that where is that ease hidden for me within this calamity? And I think in a way it's true for many of us, that we have to find that ease. And for me, I have to find it and to bestow it on others around me, because I believe the God that I entrust myself to, infinitely loving and compassionate and merciful. And he tells me that, Sophia, recognize the strength that you already have in you, and you might surprise yourself in a time of challenge like this. So I have been getting a lot of comfort and strength from verses like that. There is a Muslim scholar, Ibn al-Qayyim Jawziyah, from centuries ago, and he says that when God closes one door with his wisdom, he opens another one with his mercy. So for me, it's this time or any testing time provides immense opportunity and possibilities. And I think it's my duty and it's the duty of believers like me to look for the good in that difficult situation and take something dark and ugly and change it into a state of service or gratitude. So that's the way I'm looking at it. That's where I'm finding comfort. But I would like to come back to you all and ask you, as you've talked about things that have changed for you, where is faith in all of that for you? And I would like to start with you, Brad, again, if that's
Yeah.
okay with
Thank you. So in the Hebrew Bible, the word emunah doesn't really mean accept a set of doctrines. That kind of definition of faith as creed, it has a very contested and later history in Judaism. No creed was ever accepted by everybody. And that's because emunah really means faithfulness. It means sticking with it, not being willing to back off, not going away, not lying down, and rooting yourself in a sense of connection and responsibility and possibility. So for me, that faithfulness keeps me going. Um, I live with my wife and my adult son, Jacob, who has autism. And so helping work with him to feel good about himself and feel good about his life, that fills a significant portion of my time. I'm rabbi to my rabbinical students, to many of my donors, to the larger community, helping them to not flounder, to feel a sense of direction and purpose and belonging in the midst of all of this. And then I think, Sophia, what you said and the words of the sage about the meaning to be found within the suffering, in the suffering, it certainly doesn't mean we're glad the suffering happened. It doesn't mean we wouldn't like the suffering to go away. But suffering does teach to those who are willing to respond with a sense of resilience, and there I think of two verses. There's in the book of Proverbs, it teaches us that love is stronger than death. And I think that is such a difficult and profound teaching, that even the pain of separation that death is, can be transcended by our love for each other, God's love for us. And then related to that, it also says in the book of Proverbs, Olam Chesed Yibaneh, the world is built on love. And the word for love, chesed, doesn't just mean a warm feeling in your heart. There are many, many verbs and descriptions for love. Chesed is loving kindness. It's the love that inspires action. And that, I think, is something that links all of our traditions, that our belief is proved not by how loudly we say the prayers or how loudly we bang our chests or the size of our holy book. It's proven by how we treat people when we're not reading the holy book and when we're not saying our prayers. Can you watch us and say that is a God-inspired person because they are relentless in their compassion, because they are committed to justice for all people, because they see the divine image in each and every person, because they treat creation as a precious piece of art and a great gift. And that for me is where my faithfulness comes through.
That's beautiful. Elaine, would you like to go after him?
Yes, thank you so much. That was beautiful. I one of two authors that I have drawn much insight from are Saint Teresa de Avila of Avila and Saint John of the Cross. And two writings in particular have really influenced me. and how I see a practice, and that I can say that is an inward reflection that moves me outwardly, or that entices me to go also outwardly. Um, Two of the writings are in the Interior Castle, and the other one is The Dark Night of the Soul. And with the Interior Castle, you are able to go through stages in which you are encountering different rooms and different areas of your soul. It's almost like a spiraling down kind of motion. And the Dark Night of the Soul, what it does is that slowly begins to, St. John of the Cross talks about the nakedness of the soul. And the nakedness of the soul is one of the most painful experiences, excruciating experiences for the mystic, because the mystic feels like he or she has been abandoned by God. And it is total, utter kind of sense of abandonment. It's almost like as if you are you're truly left with yourself, and the nakedness of the soul is like you are just barely you have no clothing, nothing to protect you, no face mask, no clothing, no richness, no power, no glory, and no pride. And so to endure the dark night of the soul is to experience that utter amount of utter sense of solitude, and at the same time knowing that it is beyond knowledge, beyond experience, beyond the circumstances, beyond what you see, that there is indeed a greater closeness to the divine, and to others and to yourself. So it also allows you to realize that the things that have been there all along were just mere, I'll say, are things that are not necessary, but that they are in addition to, and things that you can let go of. So in that encounter, in that nakedness of the soul, then through it, as you go through it, you're able to encounter all things in more vibrant and vital way. It's almost like the bedazzlement of the world that has captured you for so long becomes darkened, and then there is a greater illumination that you're able to experience the world anew. And so faith for me is kind of like that. It's almost like this, and there are some writers that talk about dark luminosity. It's like there is a dark luminosity that it is subtle, and for me that this time has been experiencing that kind of solitude in a very tangible way. It's not just an exercise for me. It has become the reality in which I live in when I wake up, when I am here by myself. Because I have, just to let you know, it's a matter of disclosure, I am single. I don't have children, and I don't have a spouse or a partner. So my time here is truly a time of aloneness and solitude.
And Jay?
So many years ago, I was the English teacher for a Zen Buddhist priest from Japan. He came to Claremont, California, and they asked me to teach him English. And we were together for 1 full year, every day. And that was my time to meet someone that in that tradition was enlightened. He was a monk, and he had had that awakening experience. And at that time in my life, I think I lifted that up as something really special and really amazing. And, you know, I was just a Methodist from Texas. I didn't have any experience like that. But the more I got to know him, the more I appreciated his humanity. I appreciated his sense of humor. I appreciated his capacity to be planted on the ground, feet on the ground, to be practical. So my whole image of Buddhist enlightenment shifted from an elevated state to something much more concrete and earthy, almost Jewish in the terms of Hebrew scripture. And that reminds me of an old Zen saying, and I really love this saying. Someone asked a master, what is it like to be enlightened? And the master says, really nothing special. It's just that when you fall down, you get up again. And that little saying, when you fall down, you get up again. That's the resilience of which Brad speaks. I have personally, and I'm not asking anybody else to think this way, I have really never thought of God as all powerful. I've never looked to God to make everything all right. But I've looked to God as a source of strength to deal with whatever comes your way, and as a source of fresh possibilities, even when you think there are none, and as a kind of wide space that includes all, everything in love. So God is wide space, God is source of fresh possibilities, and God is the strength to get up again when you fall down. That's faith for me. And you, interestingly enough, you don't have, I believe in God. I pray. But I think you can have faith and not be sure what you believe. I think you can have all those things I just named and not at all be sure what you believe.
So talking about new possibilities, I mean, life is changing in ways that we have never seen before. And there are all new possibilities out there. What do you all hope for your own community, for the society, and even for the world as a whole? After going through this pandemic, which we're still going through, what have you learned? And what possibilities do you see? I know there is kind of this desire to get back to normality or normalcy in many people. That scares me, actually, to be very honest. I think nothing could be worse than returning to a normal that we used to live before. I think the way this crisis has disrupted our modern world order that emerged with industrialism and capitalism and modernity, and we became such a highly individualistic society, which taught us to watch for ourselves and go for our own successes and disconnected us with the larger universe. I don't want to go back to that normal, where I was always taught that do what is best for me, and that will eventually benefit the society. Now we are learning what is best for the society is actually going to benefit us, all of us. So the logic has flipped, things have changed. So I would like to ask you all, what possibilities do you see based on what you have learned during this pandemic? Whoever would like to go first.
Oh, Sophia, we're all too nice to go first.
Okay, then let's stay in the same rhythm and start with Brad again. You're muted, Brad. You'll have to unmute yourself.
So I have two thoughts to respond. Sophia, I agree with what you said with one caveat. There's no going back to the recent reality And there's also a danger to excessively glorify the distant past, right? So that age in which everyone's individualism was subsumed by the community means certain powerful individuals and institutions got to say what was the community. And your community and mine have both suffered at the hands of majorities who said there's no place for you in community. So the balance has to be, how do you maintain the importance of individualism and individuality in a way that augments community? And how do you maintain the strength of being interconnected in a way that augments the possibility of being an individual? And that we have to see it as a dynamic in which they're mutually reinforcing. Both of them beautiful, both of them very important. The most recent age made an idol out of individualism and pretended people were solitary, but the age before that made an idol out of institutions and authorities and crushed individuals. And that's also not something to go back to. So, as you said, I agree, we need to build an existence that takes the strength of every age in the past and then contributes something new to it. And what I see that as being is that I've learned in the last several months that there were people who were invisibly excluded, who we didn't even know we were leaving out. Look at all the way that institutions of worship have created worship services and learning opportunities online that they never used to do. It's not that we didn't have the technological capability, we just never did it. And we said, well, people should come to us. But there have always been people whose hearts are with us, but they can't or won't bring their bodies to us. And now we've discovered that we can reach them. The number of people who are online listening to opportunities to learn and sing and pray and meditate has exploded. Every rabbi I know talks about how they are now getting much larger attendance at their services, which are through Zoom or some other online method, than they got when it was come through the doors to my building. So I think what has to stay the same and what we learn from this time is how we reach out in diverse ways to include everyone. The people who used to be invisible, the shut-ins, the frail, the sick, the people who are just, this week, I'm not in the mood to get to that place. There has to be a way, it won't replace being physically together, but it can augment it. And we can be a broader community. I also think there have been really powerful ways in which we've started to see the humanity of people who were previously invisible to us. So one of the things that I've noted, and this is bigger than the pandemic, but in the last 4 years, I've seen the establishment of interconnections between Muslims and Jews, Muslims and Christians, Jews and Christians, Buddhists, Hindus. There's been this flowering of looking at people who've been with us all along, who we just never let ourselves see. There's been an acknowledgement of privilege, and of those of us who have whatever privileges we have, that doesn't mean we didn't work hard, but it means that other people are carrying burdens that it's our job to help lift. And so I see also this sense of interconnection, that some little virus in some corner of the world that we had never knew the name of before has got the whole world shut down. That means that the illusion that we're separate, and here, Jay, I'm deliberately relying on process thinking, that we each have an interiority, but we are each of us connected to each other and the cosmos in profound ways that allows our identity to take shape. And so I'm hoping that what will come out of this period is a renewed sense of interconnection, where the individual is valued and the collective is valued. And then the last thing I'll say, I'll make an explicit Jewish plug. Here we have been sitting in our homes for all these months, and I think of it as a cosmic Shabbat, a cosmic Sabbath. You know, I'm used to not driving my car 1 day a week. And now all of a sudden I never drive my car. The only time I drive my car is 1 day a week when I go shopping during the old people time. And that's my big outing of the week. Um, but, but I wonder what Shabbat offers the world. Instead of seeing ourselves as trapped, that we're being invited to pause. And the universe is reawakening. There are wild animals walking in the streets of major urban centers that haven't for decades. The air here in Los Angeles, Elaine, you I'm sure have seen as well. You'll go outside and the mountains are so clear and the air is so, and the flowers are magnificent. And I've been sitting outside in the afternoon and getting to know my neighbors. And so people who I never knew their names, now we say hi to each other and we know each other. So let's not go back to the old isolation. Let's not go back to the old frenetic, I need to be doing more, I need to be, let's remember what we've learned from this cosmic Sabbath, this forced resting and being in the present, and let's carry that forward.
Brad, thank you so much for reminding us what virus already did for us about the interconnectedness of human life in ways that we really needed to be reminded. And there is definitely a need for greater empathy and recognizing the gifts in those who have been invisible. So as I move towards Jay and Elaine to respond to this question, I want to add something else, something more to it. I have a question from one of our participants on YouTube who's asking us that what is the role of interfaith work in redefining community resilience, the way we have been impacted from virus? How do we create environments of nurturing relationships and help solve real problems? So as you think about interconnectedness, think about the role of interfaith work. Where does it all fit in as we redefine and reshape our communities? Jay, would you like to go next?
So I think, number one, thank you, Brad, for the notion of Sabbath. It's something I love about Judaism. I'm jealous. I just think it's such a marvelous, not just idea, but I can't find the word. And I heard someone say, you know, this pandemic, this has been nature's way of telling us to go to our room and just think about it for a while. And I think we've all gone to our room and just thought about it for a while, but that's a part of Sabbath. Sabbath is more than that, but it does involve self-reflection. I think that this experience for me has made me more irritated at the way society functions and angrier at the fact that we have organized life in such fashion that so many people are left out. And there's such inequities, such disparities economically, so many marginalized people. And I think it's helped me understand that we've actually done a very lousy job of organizing society in a way where everybody is taken care of. And I don't think that fulfillment comes in having perfect public policies and perfect governmental policies. It involves more than that, but not less. And so I look for structural changes in a way now that I don't think I quite looked for 3 months ago. I'll stop there. Elaine, how about you?
So I'm just inspired by what it's been shared. Much of what you're sharing about the Shabbat and the pause of the universe and the pause, divine silence. It's pretty powerful. I think that with silence and pause, comes much creativity and new beginnings. So I'm really expecting new things. I'm hopeful for new beginnings. I would like to see us become a less consumerist culture. These times of abstaining, if there is anything we have learned, is that we have plenty. We lead very abundant lives. and there is no need for us to continue to consume at such large proportions as we have been doing as a society. I've also feel that if there is anything that and to bring in that question that has been asked on the chat box, that less competition and more cooperation among us as individuals and between nations, and cooperation hopefully also between religions, or between us as religious people or non-religious people as well, but people who have some kind of spirituality, and to use this time to increase our sense of humanity as we are engaging one another. So resilience, I hope, will lead us into cooperation, and it would lead us into a greater awareness of the environment, the impact that we humans are making on the environment, and how, especially because of that, as Rabbi Brand Artson was talking about, we're having a wonderful clean air moment in time. And that is in part because we really are abstaining from the use of our vehicles to be every day 2 hours on traffic to get to work. So, yeah, I understand also that some of us have the privilege to work from home, and I am aware of that, and not everybody does. And at the same time, I'm grateful that we have been able to use this pause to contemplate on the world that we live in as a whole, and how cooperation perhaps can be established between us. I hope that somehow politically we can lead in the direction of greater cooperation as well, and politically we can recognize the needs of the time, and that we can get involved in ways that bring about the changes that we feel are needed in society.
Thank you, Elaine and Jay and Brad, for your very insightful comments and remarks. I would read a couple of quick comments from our YouTube live stream, and then we'll go towards the closing of this this session. So firstly, in response to the interfaith comment, I'll share a small project with you. Our community, our Muslim community, is running a face mask making campaign nowadays, in which we are engaging seamstresses who are laid off from work, but now they're making masks and getting money to be paid for it. And most of the funds and monies are coming from the healthcare community in Arkansas, from hospitals and clinics, just secular community. So there are primary healthcare workers who are donating money to a mosque, an Islamic center, to make face masks, which are being delivered to the churches in Arkansas who are serving primarily minority communities like African Americans, immigrants, Latinos. And I think this is a beautiful example of our interconnectedness and our interfaith codependence on each other that emerged from this crisis. And I wanted to highlight that in response to that comment that was made on the YouTube live stream. I have one more comment in which says, I would like to think that the pandemic has undermined the lingering hierarchism of religious organizations and fostered a new mutually benefit community between human beings as well as between human beings and animals. So there are more comments, but we don't have time for that.
Can I say something on that? Because from my tradition, we are quite hierarchical. And if there is something that the virtual engagements, the virtual rooms, the virtual mass, the virtual Bible study groups, what it's doing is that is diffusing, decentralizing And by that I don't mean that we have to stay away from communion, but it's decentralizing it a bit and allowing for the laity to take part in greater ways, in being more involved in leadership and leadership expressions. The Eucharist, of course, is still a central component of our liturgy. Nonetheless, it seems to me that the Eucharist is now in the home, a part of what we do at home. And so the decentralization can be good in that it allows us to recognize our part and what we play in our worship, in our liturgy.
Brad, would you like to respond to this comment about hierarchism or decentralization of religious organization?
So, there's a joke that if you hate organized religion, you'll love Judaism, because we tend to be about as disorganized as it gets. And then there were ways in which some portions of the community aped the hierarchy of Christendom. And so you have these things called chief rabbis, which you don't find in the Talmud, and you certainly don't find in the Mishnah, you don't find in the holy books, but you found it in European countries. And so they created chief rabbinates so they could be like everybody else. And the Jewish people are drifting away from that institutionalization. But I want to go back deeper to, Sophia, what you talked about, which is the power of interfaith work. Because I think one of the challenges in contemporary life all over the world is we're all siloed. We naturally drift to people like ourselves. And it's not necessarily out of bias or even fear. It's just the people you talk to are the people who are like yourself. And so having institutions that are devoted to getting us out of our silos, one of the surprising discoveries is how much we can learn from each other. Jay and I have often spoken about the ways we envy each other's religious traditions. There are so many beautiful things within Christianity, so many beautiful things within Islam or Buddhism. And one of the blessings of our time is we have permission to lean on the wisdom of traditions that are not our own label. So I, in addition to putting on talis and tefillin, Jewish ritual objects every morning, I also try to meditate. And I get that from Hindu and Buddhist practice. I get inspired by many of the Christian mystics, many of the Muslim mystics. I'll sometimes take out the Quran because it's such beautiful, beautiful poetry of the heart. And there has to be a way in which we can learn from each other, and that makes us better people. And it doesn't threaten our faith, it just enriches our faith, because I can now then see things within the Jewish tradition and say, oh, that's something that's very similar to this contemplative Christian practice. Or, oh, that's very similar to the structure of Islam. And so I want to celebrate not only this interfaith center, but all interfaith work, because nobody thinks a symphony would be better if it just had French horns. But somehow we treat religion, or you go to a restaurant, I'm always going to order the exact same thing. I want a restaurant that only has one thing on the menu. But God seems to love diversity. And so we should too. And I think interfaith work has been and continues to be on the front lines of that kind of robust diversity that makes us all better.
That is so beautiful and so true, Brad, how much we can learn from each other and inspire each other and grow with each other towards a better future. And that's what motivates me every morning to get out of my bed. With that, I would like to go towards Jay. We are beyond our time. And this is such a good discussion. It's hard to close it, but you are the best person.
So everybody take a break, go get a cup of tea and come back, and we'll go for another hour. No, I'm going to bring this to a close. I just want to thank everybody. It's been great. This is Interfaith. This is Interfaith. What you've heard is people sharing and learning from one another. obviously we don't have to be the same. And sometimes that holy envy that comes, when in my relationship with Brad, I think there was a time when I thought, oh, I think I should convert to Judaism. And I think Brad discouraged me. I couldn't get that. Why not? But, his point was, we don't have to be the same. And there are things that we can't be. I can never be Jewish in the way that you're Jewish, but that's kind of beautiful that people can be things that I can't be. I'm so glad about that. So I think you kind of accept the limitations as well. You accept the limitations of Christianity. I do. The limitations of Judaism, the limitations of Islam, they don't have to be everything. They just add something beautiful to the whole. That's enough. So for all of you out there that are enjoying this or learning from this, we wish that you could have been participants just like we were. And we care about you. And we just want to thank you for joining us. And if you have ideas for what we can do, or if you have ideas for what you can do and share them with us, we're all about it. So thanks very much and have a good rest of the day to everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye.